We're now ready to see what the most fundamental ethical principle is. But first I'll give you a hint. It follows from the simplicity criterion of knowledge. If you like to figure things out for yourself, put that observation together with the equality clause from the Declaration of Independence as you pause on the next slide. Here's what we get. The most fundamental ethical principle is symmetry. That is, symmetry among people. This is why the Golden Rule and the Equality Clause approximate the principle of symmetry, because underlying the Golden Rule and the Equality Clause is the principle of symmetry. Now notice that the principle of symmetry is implied by the simplicity criterion of knowledge, because symmetry among people produces a much simpler model than a model with asymmetries. Why is this? Because with complete symmetry, for example, what applies to one relation applies to all relations. So we only need to specify it once to cover all relations. By contrast, with asymmetries, we must specify each asymmetry and which relations it applies to. To make this concrete, an example of an asymmetry is the relation between a parent and a child, because a parent has authority over their child, while an example of symmetry is a relation between a husband and wife in an egalitarian marriage. The principle of symmetry counters polygyny, in which a husband has multiple wives. Symmetry in marriage implies monogamy. Okay, so how do we develop an ethical model? We develop the simplest, most accurate model for achieving the relational duality of independence and intimacy. As a result, we develop the most symmetric model that we can as we seek to realize the relational duality of interdependence and intimacy. We seek to maximize symmetry subject to maximizing accuracy in realizing the relational duality of interdependence and intimacy. As we well know, life is replete with essential asymmetries, such as between a parent and a child, between an employer and an employee, between a police officer and a citizen, etc. So we know that we're not going to achieve complete symmetry in our model, but we strive for as much as we can, subject to realizing the relational duality. As an example, racial discrimination entails asymmetry, so we eliminate racial discrimination in realizing the relational duality unless we can justify racial discrimination as needed for better realizing the relational duality. Some slaveholding apologists in the years prior to the Civil War attempted to justify slavery as good for blacks on the basis that blacks were inferior in ability to whites, so were well served by the paternalistic facet of slavery. These apologists were arguing that the interdependence facet of the relational duality was better served by slavery. Most people saw this as a self-serving argument that it was, but it took another century or so for many Southern whites to acknowledge that racial discrimination against blacks degrades both the interdependence and the intimacy facets of human relations in society. The repentance of George Wallace, former governor of Alabama, provides a notable and heartening example of the ethical maturation of a Southern leader. Now let's summarize. In this three-part video, I've shown how we develop ethical principles based on reason applied to experience. And on this basis, we develop the most fundamental ethical principle, namely the principle of symmetry. As we saw, the principle of symmetry underlies the Golden Rule and the Equality Clause of the Declaration of Independence. In my book, I cover a range of controversial ethical issues in a similar manner, though none of the others is as abstract as this one is. You will discover that in my book, my conclusions are, overall, that conservative ethical principles are rational, reflecting the wisdom of the ages. But as in this video, my development is based on a highly technical line of reasoning. in order to accurately take account of the full complexity of reality and human experience. As a result, if a knee-jerk ethical conservative or a knee-jerk ethical liberal reads my book in order to see if I espouse their creed, they will find that I don't espouse their creed, so they'll throw out my results in disgust that I should arrive at such horrible conclusions. If, by contrast, someone reads my book who wants to discover knowledge, I believe that they will find my development fascinating and sound, and if they have some question or challenge, rather than throwing out my book in disgust, they will send their question or challenge to me for clarification or debate. In conclusion, we have seen that ethics is about relating to other people, that ethical principles are based on reason applied to experience, and that ethical principles serve the two facets of the relational duality, namely, interdependence and intimacy, mutual need and mutual meaning. As to the intimacy facet, we saw that meaning in life is found in relations with other people, but we didn't say how we obtain meaning. In the next video, we'll see how we obtain meaning.